Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So let's jump right into Hadith number 18, which we briefly spoke about in our last session, but we will officially begin with the companion who is narrating this particular hadith, which is, of course, Mu'adh ibn Jabal. This is the individual that we want to focus on because Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh is, of course, the well-known companion, one of the most famous companions, who the Prophet ﷺ said that on the Day of Judgment, he will be the leader of the scholars of Islam. So every alim and every scholar that you can think of Islam, they will have a leader on the Day of Judgment. And that leader is Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh. He was so beloved to the Prophet ﷺ that there are narrations where there was a time when Mu'adh ibn Jabal and the Prophet ﷺ, along with other companions, they were returning from an area like a city or a village. So they were on their horse and they're just getting back to Medina. And the Prophet ﷺ looks at Mu'adh and says, Ya Mu'adh. And Mu'adh radiallahu anhu responds, Labbayk ya Rasulullah. Yes, ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet ﷺ says to him, Inni uhibbuka fillah. I love you for the sake of Allah. Out of nowhere, I just love you for the sake of Allah. And then he responds, فَأَحَبَّكَ اللَّهُ الَّذِي أَحْبَبْتَنِي فِي. Then I also love you the same way that you love me for the sake of Allah as well. There are several narrations like this with Mu'adh ibn Jabal. So what this tells us is that this particular companion really had a special place in the heart for the Prophet ﷺ. And what scholars say is that one of the reasons could be, and this is more than likely, it is because of his knowledge. This is why Mu'adh ibn Jabal was the companion chosen to, you guys all know this story, right? When he was chosen to be sent as an ambassador of Islam to Yemen. And the Prophet ﷺ told him that you are going to meet the people of the book. And when you meet them, the first thing you should teach them is who is Allah. Then you teach them about Salah. In other words, teach them about all the fundamentals of Islam. So the hadith which his name is attached to is always about one of two things. It's either about something to do with knowledge, so something to do with a particular issue in the Quran or a particular surah or one aspect of theology in Islam, or his name is linked to something that is related to akhlaq. And this hadith is going to be one of them. So Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh, one of the most profound, beloved companions of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So you can rest assured that every time you see his name in any hadith, that hadith more than likely by default is going to be an authentic, acceptable hadith just because of his name. He does not have a hadith narrated that his name is linked to where the hadith is questionable, okay? So the Prophet ﷺ then says, so he narrates, اتق الله حيث ما كنت. So be conscious of Allah wherever you are. You see, this first sentence, we've already talked about taqwa quite a bit, so we don't need to repeat that here. This particular sentence that opens up everything about this hadith is the first rule of thumb just in life with respect to Islam. So if you want three principles or rules of life to maintain and protect your deen, this is the hadith you start with. The first thing is, be conscious of Allah. How do you become conscious of Allah wherever you are? We discussed that the first step is there has to be a constant reflection or thought of Allah wherever you are and whatever you do. You constantly are thinking of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He see from you? What does He hear from you? If the decision you make, will Allah be pleased with or not? That's the priority of the believer. So when it says here, wherever you are, literally wherever you are. So some students, when we talk about this hadith, will ask questions like even if I'm in the bathroom, like, is there an exception? Tell me one area where you forget Allah or you shouldn't remember Him. Tell me something. Is there any moment or time or place where you should not have Allah in your mind, you should not think about Him? No. You may have heard, okay, when you're in the bathroom, you don't want to be sitting, listening on your headphones like a surah, or you don't want to have like a lecture playing, and when you're in that state, because why? It's hard to concentrate on that, because the whole idea is when you go to the bathroom, the sunnah is do your business and get out, right? Don't set up camp and then you'll have, an hour lecture and listen to it. The bathroom is not that. So the point here is that for a believer, you never truly can stop or pause the remembrance of Allah as believers. That will only happen because the believer, him or herself, does not put enough effort to keep the remembrance of Allah in their lives. It's not like a default where, I'm just so busy. That's why I don't think about Allah and I don't think about these trivial things, What am I going to eat? What time am I going to sleep? When am I going to wake up? How am I going to pray? What surahs am I going to recite? I don't think about these things. Well, you should. It's a state of mind. This hadith is calling for us to develop and maintain consistency with our thoughts, with the decision making. Any sort of predicament or circumstance that you're in, your ultimate goal at the end of the day, whatever it is that you do it by remembering Allah is watching and Allah is listening. Everybody understand? Ittaqillah haythu ma kunt. So this is one principle of life mentioned in this hadith. This is principle one. The second, we're going to make mistakes when we practice our deen. We're all going to be subject to mistake. But our Prophet ﷺ told us a hadith that all of you know, that kullu bani Adam khata'un. Every single one of the children of Adam, what do? Khata'un. Khata'un is like you're going to make a mistake, but it's not going to be any mistake. It's going to be trivial. It's going to be major. The point is you're going to do wrong. Believe it or not, I used to wonder when I heard this hadith, why did the Prophet ﷺ have to say this? Isn't it obvious in life that we see, and as we interact with people and life, you naturally understand and you naturally develop the understanding that people make mistakes, including yourself? Did you need a hadith to tell you that? So what is the Prophet ﷺ really teaching us here? Listen to it. وَأَتْبِعِ السَّيِّئَةِ الْحَسَنَةَ تَمْحُهَا. Follow the bad deed with a good one. The issue here is not that the person has fallen into sin or mistake. The issue that it's addressing is what comes after the mistake or the issue. That's what do you do after that? Many ignore. They ignore the consequences of their mistake. It's not a big deal to me, so it shouldn't be a big deal to anybody else. That is fundamentally wrong for a believer, not to be concerned about the people around it, especially when you are the one that's illustrating and giving them an impression about who you are. You have to also take responsibility of the impression that you illustrate, that you are in front of people wherever you go. What kind of person you are at home, what kind of person outside the home, at work, when you're driving, when you're sitting, when you're eating. You let off and display an example of who you are through these actions. You're accountable and you're responsible to try to do things in a way that people can always, inshallah, either think good of you even through your mistakes. Now, I know that's easier said than done. We can't control what people think about us at the end of the day, but we can control our actions, our decisions, and how we display those actions and decisions. That's what this part of the hadith. So the next principle of life is every time you make a mistake, follow it up with a good deed. This is the lesson behind, okay, every single person of children of Adam make mistakes. But the best of those who make mistakes, how does the hadith end? How does the hadith, that the best of those who make mistakes are the ones who? وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ. So the best of those who make mistakes are the ones who turn to Allah and repent. Quick side point. You heard of this word tawbah? We mentioned the different types of tawbah mentioned in the Quran, correct? What does the word tawbah mean? Don't say repentance, okay? What does the word tawbah itself actually mean? Yeah. Okay, to go back? Give me more. That's a good start. To go back from what? What are you going back to, or what are you turning away from? So this is my point. And this is one of the reasons why Arabic is such a powerful language, the most comprehensive language in existence. It will remain like this until the end of time. No language will supersede how comprehensive and how precise and powerful the Arabic language is. The word tawbah, it means that you physically change something about you and your life so that you don't fall into that mistake again. So for some people, I need a break from, the computer or from my phone for a little while. So every day I'm going to just get off the phone at 7 o'clock. After that, I don't need to do anything. For others, when they're in a particular work environment or school, they'll be like, you know what, the fitna here is just way too much for me. I need to take a semester off and get my head together. Others will be other things. You have to change and alter something about your lifestyle so that you reduce as much as possible the chances of you making that mistake again. So the next time you hear, make tawbah to Allah, that doesn't mean just say, astaghfirullah. Oh, Allah, forgive me. Ameen. That's not tawbah. What have you done so that your life can continue without falling into this problem again? That's tawbah. So this hadith, that's why it goes on with, and follow up the bad deed with a good one, because as a result, this good deed will erase the bad one. Is that where it stops, by the way? It'll just erase the bad one and done? The Quran and the ayah that we talked about in Surah Al-Furqan explained what this meant. When the bad deed is erased, it says here, follow the bad deed with a good one. I do something wrong, immediately I try to do something right to make up for that, or at least erase that. Because that's what the hadith says. It'll erase that bad deed. So now where that bad deed was, where does this good deed go? Does it replace that, or do I just have an empty spot on my scale, and hopefully this deed will either fill that spot, or it's just empty and I continue just more and more good deeds as I go along. But there's this empty part of my scale. My point is that the verse that we looked at in Surah Al-Furqan, فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنًا, Allah explains further what this means. That empty spot now on your scale, out of Allah's mercy, what does He do? He not only erases that bad deed, but He takes the good deed and fills where that bad deed was there once upon a time. So now you always maintain a full scale of deeds. Only this time, you have more good ones than you do of the bad deeds. That is just from Allah's mercy. That's a gift that Allah gives the people who make true tawbah to Him. فَإِنَّهُ يَتُوبُ إِلَى اللَّهِ مَتَابًا. Like that's the kind of tawbah that you come and you present to Allah. That's a strong case that you give to Allah on the day of judgment. That is real true tawbah. So don't take this for granted. Give me an example. When you do a bad deed, you follow with a good deed. Just give me like a quick example. So what do you follow it up with? What kind of good deed? You say astaghfirullah or a'udhu billahi minash shaitan, or you feel regret. What do? Anything that's good, anything, whether it's something you can verbalize or something you can actually, whatever it is. Now, there's one more thing that I'll mention to you. Link now taqwa, the first part of this hadith, to this second part now. The believer who is conscious of Allah, this is how Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah explains this hadith, okay? That the believer who is conscious of Allah, who has taqwa of Allah, he always is conscious and remembers Allah constantly. That is the believer that will also be conscious of their bad deeds. They won't be ignorant to their bad deeds. They won't be naive. No, I'm not that kind of person. What are you talking about? No, the believer will be the hardest on themselves than anyone else. They are the most critical to themselves and their action. You are your best critic. You are the one that has to be hard on yourself and expect and demand more or better. How? Because of the opening principle, the opening sentence. Because you're somebody that thinks about Allah. The consequence of constantly having Allah in your heart, Allah on your mind, is that it also causes you to monitor the things that you say and the things that you do. And any bad deed or any sin that's made, the believer immediately recognizes it and acknowledges it and is not in denial, or is not going to just make up excuses. You know, I only said that curse word because I was having a bad day. Just forget it. Believer doesn't do it. You take accountability. Period. You take the accountability. So as a result of that, naturally, it should cause you to do something good. The good deed that we're talking about here, it could be anything. So it's not just something that you verbalize. You're just like holding a door open for somebody with the intention of something that you said or did earlier that day. I'm going to hold this door open, and inshallah, with the intention that Allah will erase that bad deed from me. That's how a believer works. That's how a believer lives. Then the third and last principle of life: and engage others with beautiful character. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسِ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. Okay. خَالِقِ النَّاسِ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. Okay. So, in conclusion with this particular narration, at the end of it, these first two pieces of instruction, somebody is struggling to remember Allah. Fine. Then when it comes to like monitoring their behavior and their deeds, they struggle with that as well. You know, this is one of the things that for the person that this becomes difficult for is somebody who has become so habitual with a sin that it's hard for them to see and realize what they're doing is wrong. A simple example of that is like saying inappropriate things. Like, you know, maybe for one person, because of where they come from or the family that they grow up with or their culture, using certain curse words are not a big deal. So oh my God, how could you say that? You're a Muslim, don't curse like that. To another person is like, what are you talking about? This is how we talk. You know, my dad talks this way, I talk to him this way. It's not a big deal in our house. Now, that's where this last part comes in. If the person is lost and confused and struggles to monitor their behavior, monitor their deeds, and as a result, it also is linked of this lack of awareness and consciousness because they've never studied, they don't understand or even know who Allah is. The third one is the bare minimum. At least what you should do at the end of the day is to be nice. Have good akhlaq. Akhlaq is not something you learn, students. This is naturally the fitrah of how Allah created us, and I'll show you how. Allah created all human beings to be nice and to be kind and to be polite. It's in our nature. You never need to take a class in akhlaq to understand what it is. You would take and study these subjects to understand the benefits and the rewards as well as the consequences of good deeds versus bad deeds. You want to understand what the blessings and things to motivate you to do the right things. But how do you feel when you do something nice? Let's say, you know, I don't know, you open the door for, you know, these elderly men or women coming into your building or something. You hold the door and they say, thank you. You're like, you're welcome. How does that feel? Or do you, oh my God, I can't believe they're so nice. Next time I'm going to lock this door. You don't do that. Naturally, and nobody had to teach us this. When we do nice things, we feel good doing those nice things. And when you do something bad, a normal human being should feel what? How could I have done that? Why did I say, man, I took that too far? You start to feel this remorse and this guilt. It's an awful feeling. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى. So Allah even highlights it, that the one whom Allah has given taqwa to, and this taqwa is true taqwa of Allah. وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى. And they use this taqwa and demonstrate it with the utmost truth and clarity with ihsan at the highest level. Naturally for that person, فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَ. Allah will facilitate a path that everything becomes comfortable and easy and happy. Yusra is everything that makes you feel good. So when things are easy, you feel good. You feel confident. You feel like, okay, I can do that. So part of the term yusra is also, it also encompasses somebody just feeling nice and having a good day, having a happy day. I've done so many good things today and I feel great. Nobody had to teach that to us. So that's what this last part is. If you cannot do these first two, this is the one thing every human being can do, is that you can engage and deal with people in a respectful, in a kind way. Who are the people on the Day of Judgment that are closest to the Prophet ﷺ? Who are they? Yeah, Prophet ﷺ told us that the people who will be closest to him on the Day of Judgment are the people with good akhlaq and good character. The entire 23 years of prophethood is summarized in one sentence. One hadith summarizes his entire prophethood. What's that hadith? Most of you know it. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمْ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent down, and I was sent as a prophet and messenger to give you the most complete version of what good akhlaq is. That's my entire prophethood. All summarized in one sentence. It's all to do with akhlaq. So the Prophet ﷺ already knows that there are going to be people he's going to preach his message to that intellectually they won't comprehend or understand exactly what he's trying to say or teach. And they're going to be hard on him. They're going to be critical of him. They're going to scrutinize everything that he says. So the thing that he can always fall back on, that he knows Allah has blessed every human being, is that when you treat each other nicely and you're kind and respectful even when you disagree, that inshallah at least you still fall into the hadith where you will be the closest with him on the Day of Judgment. When we say good akhlaq, it doesn't always have to be positive. Good akhlaq, if you don't agree with something your parents say, and let's just say, look, you want to go for Hajj, okay? You're mature enough, you're old enough, you've saved up the money, but your parents be like, no, I really want you to just finish off one more year of school and then go. Just do that for me. You know, technically, a mature child, son or daughter, can literally say, you know what, I promise I will do that, but my priority is I can afford to go for Hajj now. I'm healthy enough. I don't know if I'll have this opportunity next year, but I'll definitely have an opportunity next year to finish up my education. Right now, I really want to go for Hajj. So you politely disagree, but at the same time, you're doing it in a way that's respectful, that's dignified. You're not putting them down. You're not talking down. You're not insulting. None of those things. So even by disagreeing with good akhlaq is part of the same hadith. You understand? Because very often when you hear about akhlaq, you always hear about like all the nice things you should do, right? But we all have to deal with situations that might be uncomfortable for the people involved. It might upset them. They may not like it. But if you do it in a respectful way, you still have good akhlaq, even in the things that you disagree or make others uncomfortable. So, and behave well towards people, good character. We can go on all day. You know, this subject of good akhlaq is really important for all of us as Muslims, because if somebody is extremely eloquent, extremely knowledgeable, they studied Islam from beginning to end, they have PhDs when it comes to Islamic theology and everything. But when you see them, how they behave when they're angry, when they're frustrated, what value does their knowledge have to you at that very moment? Almost all of it is lost. Why? Because of their akhlaq. Their PhDs and their knowledge literally means nothing. Look how he acts when he's upset. Look how he treated that person. Look how he fought. Look how he argued. Look how he broke the rules. Look how he did this and that. So akhlaq is a big deal. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, the first thing that he taught and said for all companions was all connected to akhlaq. Hamza, you go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, you should always do good deeds with the intention that not only Allah accepts it from you, but part of the acceptance is that Allah will also use that to erase any of the bad deeds. So you don't have to make a specific intention, but it's part of the reward. Think of it this way, that when you do a good deed, you will be blessed and honored, inshallah, that that good deed is accepted. You're blessed and honored. So part of that blessing as well is however Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to accept that deed. Part of the blessing could also be that those mistakes you did earlier, they are also erased. So what wrong you do that you're hoping gets erased, you'll never know. We'll never know that. We'll never know that if Allah accepts this one good deed from me, that it erased which bad deed that I've done. You would never know. You just have to hope with the right intention that this is part of the blessing of the good deed, that I also get that Allah erases the bad one and Allah replaces it with something good. Okay? So let's continue. Next hadith. عن أبي العباس عبد الله ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما. أبي العباس, who is this individual? Al-Abbas. This is, okay, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's the father of whom? The famous Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, right? Al-Abbas once said to the Prophet ﷺ that I was born before him, but he is older and wiser and more intelligent than me. Because the idea is the older you are, the more wisdom and experience and knowledge, generally speaking, people have. But Al-Abbas said this to the Prophet ﷺ, although I was born before you, you take on a higher status than me. Recognizing that the fact he is a prophet, that alone makes Al-Abbas spiritually, in terms of his respect to the Prophet ﷺ, he puts himself and he reminds himself and reminds the Prophet, listen, I'm no more than a student. I'm your student now. You will tell me how to live. Tell me what to do. You know, it's really hard to find. Really hard to find. You know, when you have a teacher that, could be younger than half of his students. Doesn't matter who they are. Could be like teacher at school somewhere. It's really hard for that teacher to always demand the respect that he or she deserves from the students. And shaitan is tough, man, when it comes to situations like this. Like you're old enough to be his mom. You're old enough to be his dad. Who is he or she to tell you how to live? Just don't worry about them. They're just kids. Just keep living the way you wish. So just keep that in mind. We have hundreds of examples of people that are much more older, wiser, more knowledgeable, carry a higher status in Mecca and Medina. But at the end of the day, when they heard about knowledge and they heard about the Prophet ﷺ, that took superiority over everything else. They respected the knowledge and everything that came along with it, okay? That's part of your journey as a student of knowledge. You respect the knowledge no matter how young or how old that person is. That's irrelevant. You know, my first Quran teacher in Saudi was an 8-year-old kid. He was 8 years old. He memorized the entire Quran. And me now, I'm like 21, 22. So, you know, I'm sitting there and I'm reviewing my surahs, and this little boy overheard what I was reciting, and he corrected me. He's like, oh, and I'm like, you know, I was still new, so I still got my Jane and Finch Jahiliyyah head with me, right? So I'm like, who is this little diaper kid here beside me telling me? Until, subhanallah, eventually over time, mashallah, the teacher that was teaching all of us, validated this child and literally said in front of all of us, there was like 100 of us there, and said that, this is also your teacher. And he pointed to this kid because his recitation and his memorization is exactly where it should be, or even perhaps it is higher than me. And he's talking about himself. So to honor a young child in front of everyone else who is older than him, that's how we learn that, subhanallah, age has nothing to do with it. The knowledge is what demands respect. It's the ilm. Some people, unfortunately, these days, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. And it's really unfortunate because the religion teaches us otherwise. So Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, everyone knows who Ibn Abbas is, correct? Ibn Abbas is one of the youngest companions of the Prophet ﷺ. How old was Ibn Abbas when the Prophet ﷺ died? How old was he? There are several narrations, but just put me within the vicinity, or what age group do you think he was? He was more within the mid-teens. Even there is a narration that says he was somewhere around 18 years old, but Allah knows best, right? He was very young when the Prophet ﷺ was alive. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for Ibn Abbas. And what was the dua? What did he make dua for? Two things. That he understands the tafsir as well as the ta'wil of the Quran. So there are two sciences when it comes to studying the meaning of ayah, the meaning of the Quran. One of them is more generic than the other. Tafsir is more generic. Tafsir, think of it this way. If I have this cup, tafsir is to take the lid off, okay? All you did was just take the lid, that's called tafsir. Ta'wil is you look inside and be like, oh, 3 spoons of sugar. What kind of tea? Oh, it's got some spices there. So you start analyzing everything in the ayah. So you start looking into the circumstance of how this ayah came about, who is the target audience of this surah, all of the fiqh, everything that's connected to the knowledge of this verse. You start unhatching and you start studying and analyzing. So Prophet ﷺ asked Allah to give Ibn Abbas both of these. As a result, he is perhaps amongst the top 3 most knowledgeable companions when it comes to the Quran. So knowledgeable. One day, Umar radiallahu anh was sitting in the masjid and there were senior companions that he was talking with. Okay, these companions were much older than everybody else. These are the seniors. And they were all talking about the surah that all of us know. Surah An-Nasr. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. That surah. And they were debating with Umar and these older companions. They were debating what is the true meaning of this surah. Because at the end of it, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ, and you see all the people يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا, that they all come and enter Islam afwaj. They come in massive crowds accepting Islam and being part of the deen. They're coming in massive crowds and they're doing this freely. There's no persecution, there's no resistance, none of that. Afwaja, they all enter now and they enter easily and peacefully. يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا. This is the ayah they were debating. فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Make tasbih of Allah, wastaghfir, and also seek His forgiveness, because Allah is the one, He is the source of your tawbah, and you should repent to Him. It almost sounds like a farewell type message, doesn't it? Make tasbih of Allah, ask Allah for forgiveness, and submit true tawbah to Allah. It almost sounds like this surah is kind of hinting to the last days of the Prophet ﷺ's life. Umar is debating with these senior companions. They're all saying, no, that's not what it means. That's not it. And they all gave their version of what they thought it meant. At that moment, guess who walks in the masjid? Ibn Abbas, this young child. He walks in the masjid and Umar sees him. Umar tells the senior companions, stop. We're going to get to the bottom of this once and for all. We are going to ask Ibn Abbas radiallahu what he thinks this surah, especially the last verse, what it's referring to. So he recites, "O Ibn Abbas, tell us what this verse means." فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, this is the ayah which indicates that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will leave us, and he will leave us soon, meaning he is close to his death. And Umar validated and said, yes, that is what I also believe this ayah is. And the senior companions remained quiet because they all knew who Ibn Abbas was. They knew about the dua that was made, so they knew that whatever his conclusion of the ayah was, there was nothing else after. You don't need anything else. My point is this. He's a child. Imagine how, it's frustrating. It's unfortunate when we say, the youth are the future. The youth are this, the youth are that. Just think about how well, as a Muslim culture, how well we've equipped these youth to be leaders. What do we do for them? Hey, look, there's a gym. Go play some ball for 1 hour. We want you to come here and just, grab a vacuum. And just control the lines. Make sure all the shoes are put up. Go handle traffic. Go do this, go do that. All of those things are extremely important. And all of us should be involved in helping to maintain and facilitate the crowds in and out, make things easier, whatever those jobs are. But part of that is also respecting when young people have an opinion, a valid, solid, authentic opinion about the religion or something they say, if we alter the way we do this or that, maybe it might be more effective. Maybe it might attract more students. Maybe this more, maybe that their opinion does count. They should be heard, especially when they're speaking the truth and especially when it pertains to our religion, something that they may know that we don't. So Ibn Abbas, every time you see his name, don't trivialize that, it's Ibn Abbas. All of the hadith that are attached to his name are all authentic. He does not have a single da'if hadith that's linked to his name. So he says, كنت خلف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. One day I was riding. Narration is found in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. Have you heard of this collection before? The Musnad of Imam Ahmad. All it really means, you've heard of Imam Ahmad, of course, rahimahullah. He put together this large collection. It was over 30,000 hadith. What he did is he also gathered all of the hadith and lies that were fabricated, the da'if ones, the questionable. He put them all together in a series of volumes. A lot of that has been lost, but the biggest collection you can find, the most complete, is about 25 to 35 volumes long, right? And all of this is hadith, and he has a special focus on the lineage. So all the names of the narrators in that's what his collection of hadith focuses on. Who these individuals are, a little bit about their biography and their background and so on, and not necessarily focused on the authenticity of the actual text. That's other hadith collections do that. So he narrates that it makes clear that he was riding behind the Prophet ﷺ on the same and behind the Prophet. Okay, and he said to me, "O young man, I shall teach you some words of advice." So he says, go back to the thing. Inni ya ghulam. See this word here, students? Have you heard this word before? Ghulam. What does it mean? So what's walad? What's shab? So you have shabun, a youth, walad, a young child, and then ghulam. What did you say ghulam was? So, okay, ghulam is the teenager. So the shab is who? He's like an older teenager. Listen, this is the thing. I love for us to hear these definitions because it just helps you appreciate Arabic so much more. Ghulam is used most often to refer to Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran. Even the enemies of Ibrahim alayhi salam refer to him as ghulam. Ghulam is considered to be a young man, and scholars differ on that. But just to give you something that scholars agree, I'll give you the minimum and the maximum. What is considered to be a young man in Islam is somebody who has passed the age of maturity. So let's just say, for the sake of our conversation, somebody who's around 13 years old or so, 13, 14 years old, right? They've passed this stage of maturity. So from 13 or 14 years old to about 33 years old, you are considered a shabun, a young person. Ghulam is that same person between this age group, but their maturity stands out. Their knowledge and their quickness in understanding information is superior, far more superior than other kids in that same age group. You know that one person in the class that just knows the answer to everything? And you can teach them and show them a little bit of everything and they pick it up just like that. There are students like this everywhere. That's ghulam. So think of it as a young man, but his knowledge and his maturity is not that of a young man. It's much more. He thinks like an adult. His wisdom and his understanding is like an adult. So he is definitely someone special. So the Prophet ﷺ refers to Ibn Abbas and he says to him, Ya ghulam. So now you can understand and appreciate why he calls him this name or this title. I shall teach you some words. So he says, كنت خلف النبي إني أعلمك كلمات. I'm going to teach you the following. احفظ الله يحفظك. So the first one is, be mindful of Allah and Allah will protect you. احفظ الله. You all know the term hafiz, right? This is a hafiz al-Quran. How do we translate hafiz? When we say hafiz al-Quran, how do we translate that? The one who has memorized, right? Hafiz is much more than that. That's why memorizing Quran is a great honor, but it's not something huge or magnificent unless it has one thing attached to it, is that the one who's memorized these ayat, memorized these Quran, also treasure the responsibility of carrying this book. So they've memorized the Quran, but their maturity now has grown because they memorized the Quran. Because I'm somebody who carries the Quran in my chest, I gotta be more mature. I got to control my anger and my patience, and I got to be more patient. I have to try and strive to be more kind. I have to be more polite. I have to be more than anybody else. Why? Because I'm a carrier of the Quran. So that's why Hafiz also is referred to somebody who's like a guard, like a security guard. You can also refer to them as the Hafiz, meaning he's the protector, he's the guardian of this door, and he's not going to just let anybody in and out. So when the Prophet ﷺ says, be mindful of Allah, ihfazillah, he's telling you, make sure you protect this knowledge and this connection that you have of acknowledging Allah and worshiping Allah. That relationship, make sure you protect it. Don't allow anything in your life to disrupt that. And we live in a time, and I'm sure those who are alive 500 years ago would have said the same thing. But we live in a time where our relationship with God and our need for religion is a topic that's discussed in circles all over the world. Do you really need to have a religion? And if you do you really need a religion that tells you everything you should say and everything you should do? So where's your free will? Where's your choice to decide whatever and however? Do you really need a religion and a God to dictate your every move? This is constantly scrutinized. And that could be waswasa. That could actually be, a temptation and whisper from the shaitan for students that are not grounded who Allah is and they don't understand the value of the deen. They could really fall into that and be like, you know what, you're right. What has Islam really done for me? I went to one masjid and they treated me so awful. So what am I doing? Maybe this religion isn't for me. That's the first command. You have to protect that. Everything around you will try to break this relationship. So, number one, احفظ الله يحفظك. So that's the first one here. احفظ الله تجده تجاهك. Number two, be mindful of Allah and you will find Him in front of you. Somebody tell me what does that mean? Be mindful of Allah and you will find Him right in front of you. What does that mean? Okay, so let's just make sure, obviously this doesn't mean that He's physically in front of you, correct? So we can omit that. In front of you, how? He's close to you. How? You're aware of it. How? Paint the image clear to me that Allah is in front of me. What does that mean? Yeah. Okay, his help, his knowledge, his protection is always there for the believer. Why doesn't this hadith just say that you will always find Allah? If you are mindful, you will always find. Instead, it's very specific. تَجِدُهُ تُجَاهَكَ. Like you will find Allah directly in front of you. It's a spiritual thing. What the hadith is focused on is the first thing that you think about every single day before you take the next step is as if Allah is right in front of you. You make sure you please Allah first, then everybody else that comes into your life after that, then you'll deal with accordingly. But the one thing is that in front of you, spiritually. So it's not restricted to what Allah does for us. This is the believer that always puts Allah first. You know how people, they say, I always put my mom and my dad first. They're not physically in front of them, but what? The respect and devotion and love, no matter who I'm married to, no matter how many children I have, no matter how many friends I have, no matter who I'm close to, my parents are always number one. My parents are always in front of me. So it's kind of like similar to that. So the same thing, no matter what I do in life, Allah, as long as I am conscious of Him, I will always have that connection. You'll always find Allah in front of you. You'll always have this connection. You won't forget Him. So that's number two. Then it continues. Then Prophet ﷺ continues. إذا سألت فاسأل الله وإذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. So وإذا سألت. So this is where we're at. And if you ask of Allah. If you seek help from Allah. Ask Allah what? What are we asking Allah? If you ask Allah, وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. What are you asking Allah? Anything you want. When you make dua, what is the prophetic way when it comes to asking for Allah for anything? Is there a specific way we should do this? Is there a particular way that if you do it that way, your dua is more likely to be answered as opposed to doing it another way? Has the sunnah or has our religion taught us how to ask from Allah? What is it? What are some of the etiquettes when you're making dua to Allah? What are some of the things that have to be there in your dua in order that Allah will respond? What must you do? Start off with a praise, okay? What's the purpose of the praise? To honor Allah. You know, sometimes when non-Muslims hear that, they'll be like, you always gotta praise Him? Like, why? Why does Allah always want that from you? You just gotta praise, just ask Him. Like, well, why is that so important to Allah? That's why in Quran, Allah affirms several places throughout the Quran. Allah affirms that He gets nothing out of your praise. Because He is Al-Hamid. He is the source of the praise itself. So when you're praising Allah, it's because Allah allowed you to utter and verbalize and live those words by praising and honoring Him. And of course, Allah deserves all the praise and gratitude because He's the one in charge of everything. He's the one that created us. So I'm never going to ask any follow-up question. If Allah orders or wants me to praise Him, of course I'm going to praise Him. He's my creator. He's your creator, right? So you praise Allah. What's the other thing that has to happen in your dua? Yeah, so salatu wassalam to the Prophet ﷺ. Number 3. What's the third thing? Do you just jump into... Yeah, so that's all in alhamd. So it's all in the praise. What's the third thing? The sunnah is you ask for forgiveness however you want, but you ask Allah, astaghfirullah, Allahumma ghfirli, Allah. And the scholars say that it should be done at least 3 times or more in odd numbers. So 3, 5, 7, and so on, right? And then when you're done, can you now just jump into what you want out of the dua? Yeah. It's not, Allah will never and has never made speaking to Him difficult or complicated in any way. So you can speak to Allah directly. Now, is dua always ask, and give me, give me, give me? Is that really what dua is? Or are there other forms of dua? So aside from just asking from what you want, what else would you make dua for? Your dua can also be a dua of simple praise and gratitude. Oh Allah, I thank you for I thank you for waking me up I thank you for the eyes. I thank you for the ability to comprehend and understand. I thank you for putting me here and preserving Islam in my heart. And you just constantly show gratitude and thanks and praise to Allah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzah, and you're finished. That is absolutely okay as well. Must you verbalize when you want something from Allah? Must you say it? No, you don't have to say it. Explain this to me then. When Ibrahim alayhi salam was making dua to Allah just shortly after that whole incident that happened with the disbelievers building that fire, you remember that part? And then he was told to jump in, and Allah made قُلْنَا يَا نَارُ كُونِي بَرْدًا وَسَلَامًا عَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ. So Allah turned the fire and so on until like an AC system. Yeah, it became cool and refreshing. After this incident happened, Ibrahim alayhi salam started to make dua, and he said a set of du'as that are captured in Surah Ash-Shu'ara. وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينَ. Right? Whenever I am sick, He is the one that cures. Did Ibrahim alayhi salam mention that Allah made him sick? Where did this sickness come from? Ultimately, doesn't Allah allow those things to happen to test you, or you're being purified or punished, or whatever the case is, right? Everything that happens to us, good and bad, is it ultimately at the end of the day from Allah? Yes, it's from Allah. So why didn't Ibrahim alayhi salam say, and you are the one that caused me to be sick, and you are the one? He only says, whenever I'm sick, you are the one that cures. So he points to Allah when it comes to the cure, but when it comes to the sickness, he says, I'm the one who got sick. Explain to me why the dua is worded that way.
Out of respect.
How? You're right, but how? Out of respect. How? If, let's say, the CEO, or even for a lot of us, our parents, right? You say things like, let's say your mom or your dad was supposed to give you something or meet you somewhere, and you went and they never showed up. And when you went to pick them up, you lost time from work. You lost time with your family. You got stuck in traffic for 4 hours, and it just became a miserable day, all because you thought she was going to be there. You sat, you waited for nothing, and now you went from being completely happy, now you feel miserable. And you go up to the mom, or the person goes up to the mom and be like, you're the one that made me feel like this. Where were you? I went to pick you up and you weren't there. And I just had to go, Battle of Badr on the 401. It was crazy, and I did all of that, and now you made me so miserable. How do you think mom feels at this point? Technically, does she have something to do with it? Why all of this happened? Yeah, because she wasn't there. But is there a difference between saying, Mom, you did this, as opposed to saying, yeah, I went there, but you weren't there, so it's fine. Next time. Do you see the difference? You don't point out the bad experience directly to her. Why? Because you don't want to hurt her. You don't want mom to feel bad. Even though technically it was her mistake, you don't spell it out to her. Why? Because you don't want her to feel bad. And you don't want to associate those bad experiences or any sort of evil thing in the relationship, any problem. You don't want to constantly attach and attribute that to your mom, because out of respect, she's your mom. The same analogy, apply it now with Ibrahim alayhi salam to Allah. Ultimately, sickness and the weakness, whatever he suffered from, comes from Allah. Allah allows that to happen. But he does not put Allah's name with the sickness out of respect and honor. He doesn't want to actually verbalize and say it. He just wants the entire dua to be as positive, and that's the only thing he thinks about is just positive, positive, positive. So the next time now he becomes sick, it's never ever going to be, why did Allah give this to me? Why did Allah make this? I do everything. I exercise. I eat organic foods. You know, I don't. I stay away from processed stuff. I don't go here. And look, I still got cancer, and I'm still sick. Oh Allah, why'd you do this to me? Rather than saying, I got sick, alhamdulillah, oh Allah, cure me. So it's a small sort of like meticulous part of the dua. It's more of a technical thing, but it's part of just perfecting how you perceive and communicate to Allah, that you leave out things that would cause you to think negative of Allah. You just leave it out. This is what scholars say is the peak of speaking to Allah, making dua to Allah. The highest or the peak of that is all the negative things, all the things that hurt you and upset you. You don't actually say it because Allah knows what's in your heart anyways. So even if you don't say it, it's already known. All prophets and messengers did that. Ayub alayhi salam did the same thing, right? وَأَيُّوبَ إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ. Ayub alayhi salam made dua to Allah. What does he say? أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ. A harm, something, you know, difficult, inconvenient, it kind of just came in my life. He doesn't say Allah, and he went through so much. He lost his health, his wealth, his family, his community, everything. And what does he call it? He refers to it as, I just went through a dur, just a slight inconvenience. Oh Allah, you are Arhamar Rahim. You are the most merciful one. You are more merciful than anyone else. He doesn't ask Allah, oh Allah, cure me, bring me back my children, bring me back. He doesn't actually say it. And because of that, the next ayah, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ, Allah responded to him and gave him back his family and his community and everything else. It's a small, subtle part of how we speak to Allah. It is the peak of etiquettes. But if you do say and verbalize what's on your mind, that's okay too. Okay? So don't think we're omitting one and you have to take this approach. No, they're both great, but it's just part of the perfection of how we speak and think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. So whenever you ask from Allah, meaning don't shy away or hesitate or be afraid to ask for whatever it is that you want. And then it continues, وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Yeah. Shu'ara. Yeah. The surah of the poets. Yeah, Surah Ash-Shu'ara, and it is surah number 26, yeah, and it's verse number 70, yeah, verse number 77 to 83. 77 to 83, and the one that we just talked about, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ, that's verse 80. Okay, that's verse 80. Okay, وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. And when you seek help from Allah. Have you heard this word before? Ista'in. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. There are two words in the Quran that describe help. One of them is this one, Ista'in, which you find in Surah Fatiha and other verses as well. That also means you're asking for help. But then there's another word in Quran, all throughout the Quran, that also is to seek help from Allah. All of us know this. What's that word? Nasr, right? إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ, right? Nasr, Nasr, Nasr. So these are the two words. What's the difference between the two? They both ask for help. So what's the difference? Ista'in is you asking for help in anything and everything that you need help in life. It's nothing major. Oh Allah, help me get home safely. Oh Allah, give me great help to finish this class. Oh Allah, help me, let me, survive today at work, or let me do this, let me achieve this. Just day-to-day routine things. Ista'in is usually the word, if you want to be technical about it, that's the word that's usually used. And it's most common. If I say, I need your help, in the hallway, that's also called Ista'in. Okay? Nasr, you can translate it as like aid from Allah, A-I-D. When you're asking for major help, you're not just asking, oh Allah, wake me up and just make me feel good. No, you're asking for more than that. Oh Allah, cause it to rain. We haven't seen rain in 3 months. Cause it to rain. Our crops our animals are sick. Oh Allah, shower with your shifa and cure for them. Oh Allah, heal this person with cancer. Oh Allah, give us the strength that the enemies who are destroying our land and destroying our country and causing all of this bloodshed, oh Allah, give us help that we can resist and stop. Nasrun is always used for something major, big, and it's beyond your control. You can't do anything without it. That's when Nasr is used. So this hadith is using which term? Isti'ana. So now what is it focused on? On you and everything in your life. Ask Allah for help about yourself and anything in your life. By the way, this is one evidence that scholars use of how you will be accountable first and foremost on the Day of Judgment. Not what you did for others, but your first accountability would be what? What you've done for yourself. So before you helped and donated to did you make sure did you take care of your family? Did you make sure there was stability in your life, in your home? Did you work on your problems? And if the answer is yes, then the next part of that judgment is, okay, what have you done? You were in a position where you could have helped others. So have you done that? So everything works in order. So the first thing is to understand that Allah will ask us about isti'ana, the help that you needed and you asked for in your day-to-day lives, and how you did that, how you accepted that, what did you do with the gifts and the strength and the stability you asked for. Then Allah will ask you about Nasr. How did you help your brothers and sisters here? How did you put your time here, your wealth here, your efforts here, and so on. So just keep that in mind, so at least you have a clear idea when you're seeking help from Allah, what that looks like. Then Allah the hadith continues. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأَمَةَ لَوْ اجْتَمَعَتْ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَنْفَعُكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَمْ يَنْفَعُكَ إِلَّا بِشَيْءٍ قَدْ كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكَ. So know that if the nation were to gather to benefit you with something, they would not be able to benefit you except with what Allah has already recorded for you. In other words, whatever it is that you depend on and you hope for, you have to remind yourself that you will get what is written for you and it will never miss you. So if you are destined to be somewhere or to get this thing or to accomplish this, just remind yourself that if it was written for me, I will get it. But if it's not, it was not meant for me. And the reason why you phrase it this way, there are people who beat themselves on the head all the time and be like, I asked for this job, I asked for it. I don't know what I did or didn't do. I didn't get the job. I panicked in the interview, so everything went wrong for me. I don't know why this happened. So I needed that job. This is one way to sort of console those feelings, right? And just kind of remind yourself, that's when we start saying, maybe Allah didn't write it for me. It wasn't written for me, so I have to look elsewhere. Those phrases come out of our mouths because we understand that if it wasn't written for us, we'll never get it. But if it was, it is on its way. It is destined for you. You have nothing to worry about. You know what some scholars say about this is that they say that is one of the ways that a person can sort of counsel themselves to relax, not fall into depression, not fall into just overthinking and wondering and focused on this one thing they didn't get and losing their focus on everything else. It's to help to sort of control and monitor those emotions and those feelings so it doesn't cause you to forget and lose track of the important things when it comes to your deen. So this is why this part of the narration is here. And then it continues. وإن اجتمعوا على أن يضروك بشيء لم يضروك إلا بشيء قد كتبه الله لك. So then it continues with a similar benefit. And it says, except that Allah has recorded for, if they were to gather to harm you with something, they would not be able to harm you except with what Allah has already recorded against you. Somebody explain to me what this means. What do you get from this sentence? Somebody trying to harm you, they'll never do it unless Allah has allowed that this is going to happen against you. What is that supposed to do for you and I? How am I supposed to feel at this point? Somebody wanted to do something bad to me, and let's just say they did it. Then what does this part of the hadith then say? That Allah wrote for this terrible thing to happen to me? Yes. Somebody got cancer. They did everything that they knew was the right thing to stay healthy. They woke up one day, that was it. It can also be the opposite. Somebody who has a sickness, the doctors start saying your goodbyes. Call all your family and say goodbye to them. And before you know it, somehow, somewhere, Allah has cured you. The next time you go for chemo, doctors are looking like, we don't see any traces of cancer. There's nothing in you. What happened to you? There's actually several stories, true stories of people, Muslims, believers who've experienced that. One of them passed away not too long ago. Do you remember that Egyptian imam or sheikh at the IMO Masjid, Shaykh Abdullah As-Suraiji? He came actually here quite a few times when we have those Quran recitation in Ramadan. And you have these different, he came and he recited here as well. He was the Egyptian man, an elderly person that was responsible to lead the prayers at the IMO Masjid. Okay, if you've gone to IMO, at least within the last 5-6 years, you saw him there because he literally lived in the masjid. He was diagnosed with cancer. His son is a doctor. He traveled, his son lived in Kuwait. So he traveled from here to Kuwait to get treatment. He said, I want my son to sort of help look after me. His son said that all the months, I think it was about 3 months he was in the hospital, on the hospital bed. He took treatment maybe 3 times and that was it. Doctors are coming and saying, we need to do this, we need to do that, let's try this medication to stabilize your health, to stabilize your cancer. And he kept on refusing and refusing. Even the son is begging him. Instead, what do you think the sheikh was doing? He finished the Quran every week on the hospital bed. Every week, he does a khatam of the Quran. Every week. And he said that is why, and Allah knows best, but because of this, he loved Quran. His whole life is Quran. He wasn't the most intelligent person about life, about anything else. All he knew was Quran. And subhanAllah, I think he continued to live for another 10 years or something like that. He came back and was leading us in Taraweeh every single year. As a matter of fact, he came to Umrah with me one year and I stayed in the same hotel room with him. So I was able to really see some of the things that he was doing. It was remarkable. We just landed in Medina, 20 plus hours of travel. All of us are just dying for that bed. What do you think Shaykh was doing? We arrived at 10 p.m. or something like that. Everybody, settled in. We all put our stuff away, turn off the lights. And subhanAllah, Shaykh starts praying tahajjud until Fajr. These are the things that you really have to pause and subhanAllah, if something bad was destined for you, it'll find its way. But if it wasn't for you, it's not for you. It wasn't your time. Doctors can say whatever, at the end of the day, you rely upon whom? Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes. That's what that does for you and I is always it gives us a sense of calmness and reassurance that, oh Allah, you are in charge, nobody else. At the end of the day, I'll try my best, but ultimately it is whatever you have written down for me, what I shall have, good or bad. Lastly, let's conclude there, inshallah. And then finally, رفعت الأقلام وجفت الصحف. So the pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. What is this talking about? Okay. اللوح المحفوظ. Put it more towards the person here in this dunya. When they read this, what is in reference to? The qadr of Allah, okay? So one explanation for this, the pens have been lifted, meaning your qadr has already been written for you. Okay? The pages have dried. What is that talking about? Another explanation of this is death. The pens have been lifted, meaning the pen have stopped writing. You've passed away now. The pages have dried up. Everything, your life here, your legacy, your whatever you've said and done, dried up meaning has now disappeared and erased. It's gone. So all of these examples at the end of the day sort of complement each other. So at the end of the day, it is your qadr, whatever has been preordained has been written for you. There's nothing else to write. And or number two, which is the more common opinion, the majority opinion is that this is talking about when the believer dies. Their pens are lifted and there's nothing else to write or record anymore. This hadith here, some of our scholars say is the most comprehensive hadith in Imam an-Nawawi's collection, is this one. That it kind of captures a little bit of everything that every single hadith is talking about. From the intention to sincerity, to your reliance, to doing things that you're certain of, leaving things that you're uncertain of. Like this is, you can think of it that this is the heart of Imam an-Nawawi's collection, is this particular hadith. Okay. And then, yeah, go ahead.
That also means when the pens have been lifted and the pages are dried, your whole life has already been written, so there's no more to add.
Possibly, yeah.
Everything's already
Possibly, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Allah knows best, but perhaps all of these, understanding or perception of what this is talking about, could all of them have an element of truth to them, right? They're all connected in some way. So inshallah, this was just another version of the same hadith. It's a shorter version, and the one that we've just looked at is the longer and more complete version. Okay, this is the one that's mentioned in Sunan at-Tirmidhi. And with that, students, we'll pause here. Inshallah, next week, what we will do is that we will take the next probably 3 or 5 hadith. This is actually hadith number 20 is where I was hoping to stop at the end, but since we do have another session, we'll do a few more. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the end. This is it here. This is the end of that particular hadith. Now, what you see at the bottom here, yeah. This here, what you see is just another version of wording of the exact same hadith. So we don't need to go through this, but in your books, you should have it, right? You should have this at the bottom. Do you? Yeah, you should have this. It's the exact same thing. It's just a slightly different version of the same. So we don't need to repeat it. Okay, let's pause here, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. فجزاك الله خيرا. We'll see you for the last session next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.